testing if we can see the full title right there. So let's see if we can see it. Okay guys, so I'll be doing book reviews, and the reason that I'll be doing them is one, just for entertainment, and the other one is as a kid growing up I was wondering how the hell this whole world worked. This book helped me figure out some parts of the puzzle, how this complex planet that we live in works and has all these things going on. As I grew into research, I guess, I realized that reading newspapers wasn't going to be enough. Essentially, newspapers gives you some information, very, very concentrated, and it doesn't go very deep. Then you can read articles, which usually go deeper, and if you're a teenager or a young person, or just a lazy person intellectually to read, or a novice, I'm lazy, then you might want to read just articles by interesting magazines. The reason they are, it's lots of information, lots of work got into it, but it's not a full book. Now the thing after that is a whole book. The whole book will give you way more information, obviously a little bit too much usually, they'll talk into it. I'm talking as if you're a complete novice. The reason is I was a complete novice, and I think to a certain degree we all are a little bit every day. We need to be reminded of some things. So anyway, so books are really good. Now you need to know which book, right? There's books that cater to your prejudice, your original framework, or the way you see the world. So most people will get stuff that goes along with what they think, which I don't really recommend. You have to go into what we call dissonance, or something that doesn't go with what you heard before, which help you develop critical thinking. In general, just opens up your eyes. David Rothkopf, probably we haven't heard of him. He's very, very well researched in his book. I am surprised it didn't go, most people don't talk about this book. It's got a lot of information, and he doesn't really subscribe to the point of view that there is a world conspiracy. He thinks there's more like people in power for a little bit of time, and there's definitely people that set agendas. So that's pretty close to a conspiracy for people that believe in conspiracy. But there's people that are agenda setters, so they're influential and powerful enough to kind of have, whatever it is. So that can be used for good, like Bill Gates and his wife Melinda. They're doing really interesting things, and they're setting agendas where there's no money to be made. So, the big pharmas are not going to be developing anything if they don't make money, but he can do that. So we'll talk about some of the stuff he's done that's really, really interesting. The vaccines that they carry kind of in a sort of a Coca-Cola can was really brilliant. It just took some really brilliant minds to work out the problem of bringing vaccines that were not in a refrigerator in the middle of a desert or where there's a lot of heat. So they found a way to make it very, very simple. So I'll put a link later on if I find something. Anyway, in this book, David Rothkopf talks about, for example here, so he says Davos. Davos is, according to the Gulfstream owns record, the one annual event that brings together the largest percentage of its client base. In a typical year, almost 10% of all Gulfstream clients, between 140 and 150 jets, and their owner will fly into Zurich's International Airport, deposit their guests, and then use basically, get limoed up all the way in the mountains where Davos happens. So why is that important? Because if you want to know how the world works, you got to figure out who's playing, who are the big players. And obviously the big players are not just taking business planes. They have their own private jets, and they live in a different world than you and me. Still, it's quite important to know where they meet. So they like to do stuff that, Allen and Company. That's kind of an annual retreat for leaders in media industry. That's quite important. There's tons of other ones. China Boa Forum takes place. There's Hainan Island. On Alien Island. Anyway, there's lots of other things, and they like to have fun just like you and me. So the Winter Olympics, the Riders' Cup champion, all these things are where they go. So he'll have tons of little tidbits of information that will help you see how the world works and how it's pivoting toward a super class, people that have way more power than certain countries and more influence. Now, as I did research, I realized that I would need more than one way of looking at it. It's kind of like you have a tree, let's say the tree of knowledge, and there's different light that comes to it. So you have different perspective of it. So you need to eliminate it from, a botanist or someone who will, the humidity, the light. So the more you expose yourself to the same topic in different ways, it'll help clarify. One really useful way was this one. It's not a great book, sorry, it's not bad, it's just, okay, anyway. So Merchant of Death, I'm saying in terms of reading, some books are very engrossing and they're written in a way that speaks to me very quickly. This one was just a little bit longer, but it's still, if you have the effort to read it, it talks about essentially a Russian gentleman, if we can call that, essentially working in armed deals and delivering and having his own fleet to deliver guns and military stuff for, lots of different causes. They're usually not really nice. He probably came from the KGB because he started his business really quickly. And obviously at one point, I think the CIA and the American caught him. It's probably because he was doing something that didn't like. So anyway, it's a battle of different interests. So why am I putting this? This is another part of the puzzle to figure out how the world works. You need to figure out information, where it comes from. So you have to have different sources. So different languages are good, but then we'll talk about agencies. The kind of news agencies, they group information from, and they sell it to like smaller newspapers and things like that. So those are very important to figure out. Now, what question arises as you develop your, how the world works, is you wonder where the money comes from. So finance is actually super critical, especially nowadays. I would say that we are closer to a financial terrorist, let's say, world than we were many, many, many years ago. So countries will do destabilization through that. There's a few books I'll be reading, and we'll chit-chat about that. And you guys can put your comments below about any books that are interesting in that way. But anyway, so I'm not a doomsday guy, even though I know there's going to be bad days coming. China's probably not going to be doing really well in the next 10 to 15 years. There's going to be some movement there, which will affect the world's economy. But there's good things too, like buying stocks and stuff like that are on, water. Water is really important in the future. And Nestle put it as a top priority for their company. So obviously they are thinking 100 years ahead, which is really, really, really good. If you're thinking long term, it means you're going to be there. And so the reason I'm doing this vlog is that's what humans do. We create things that are larger than us, and that's what's wonderful. You can create, let's say, a charitable fund, and that whole thing will be way bigger than you. When you die, it keeps working. It's kind of an entity on itself. You can build a company, Coca-Cola or something good. I don't know. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying something that you think is good. I don't know, Equitable chocolate company, and, things that are good for your own perspective. Because everyone thinks they're doing okay. I'm pretty sure the terrorists who are killing people in some places, they think they're doing great. So obviously it's a perspective problem or case. Anyway, so that's it for that. So I'll recap some of the stuff that helped me get information, and I'll talk about books a little bit. So, and I'll put it here. So essentially you have finance. You need to figure it out a little bit and read about it. world economy, part of the finance, information flow, where they come from, where they're accumulated, where they're, I can't say it in English, but, they regrouped, if you want, collected, that was the word. Then you need to have something that have about armament, the way where they're bought and sold. Right now, as we speak, in 2016, February, a lot of the guns are being bought by Saudi Arabia. It's one of the number one countries buying the armaments from the countries that produce them. So, United States, UK, France, Israel, so many other countries. So they're buying it and sending them towards their